Welcome. Good morning, afternoon, and evening. My name is Patrick Donovan. I am the Senior Director of Marketing at Udacity, and I am very excited to lead this conversation today about our recently launched Master of Business Administration, designed for careers in AI product management. With me today, I have two folks who know probably more than anyone else about the ins and outs of the program and the accreditation behind it. So I'm very excited to welcome Jared Molton, our VP of the Consumer Business at Udacity, and Dr. Joshua Broggi, the founder and CEO of Woolf. Woolf, of course, is the accrediting body behind the MBA that Udacity recently launched. Joshua, Jared, thank you both for joining. Excited to chat with you this morning about the new MBA program. And I'm going to kick us off, Jared, with a pretty, hopefully basic question for you. Why launch an MBA?
Yeah, so the MBA is gaining popularity in the world of tech. 90% of tech employers mentioned that they're hiring MBA graduates in 2025. And then furthermore, we see our own Udacity students interested in MBA courses, particularly those in product management and AI product management and digital marketing. So our nano degree programs like AI product manager, and product manager as well, are some of our most popular in the catalog. So it seemed like a natural extension to build upon the success we saw with a master's in science degree with an MBA program that's designed for AI product managers specifically.
Yeah, and let's touch on that. I think there's my next question for you, Jared, still is, what's the difference between the Udacity offering and a traditional MBA? And I think there's a ton different. So let's shelve the AI product management piece for a second, because I want to come back to that. Setting that aside, just structurally and in terms of the student experience, we could spend the whole hour talking about this, but what's your short list of key differences in the Udacity program?
Between the Udacity program and a traditional MBA program?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think that we designed this with professionals in mind, whereas typically traditional MBA programs are designed to make sure that you're getting a breadth of subjects under your belt so you can go into any number of fields, whereas our MBA program is very specifically designed for professionals who want to get a job in tech or get promoted within their current job. And so I think that what that means is that, we don't have courses like Finance 2, where you're learning about, the right portfolio distribution between your stocks and bonds, because, product managers and digital marketers don't really need that in their day-to-day operations. We don't have courses like managerial accounting, where you're kind of figuring out the nitty-gritty of where variable costs and fixed costs play in. Very important, and some of that is addressed within our growth product manager nano degree program. But, we're not giving you the, 6 months or 4 months or whatever it is to spend on that, because instead we're focusing you on building real projects, getting your hands dirty, figuring out the right specs for new products, putting those into projects, getting feedback, iterating on that feedback, and making sure that by the time you graduate, you have a massive portfolio of real projects that you can bring to the table and say, not only do I have an MBA, but I have all of these amazing projects as well that show that I have the experience to be successful in a job as a product manager or a data analyst or a digital marketer or, any other field that you're looking for within the world of tech.
Yeah. And for those who were maybe clocking some of the different MBA level courses Jared referenced, Jared himself has an MBA, so that explains quite a bit his familiarity. Yeah, it's no secret. It's behind him. That explains the familiarity with the traditional program and some of the specificity he's able to bring to how we distinguish the Udacity degree. Joshua, I want to turn to you. We've seen, we launched a master's in AI in the fall, and now this is our second master's degree that we've launched with you and the Woolf team. Can you just share a bit more for the audience about who Woolf is? And then my follow-up question will be more specifically around the accreditation status of the particular degree.
Yeah, so Woolf is an accredited degree granting institution. We're based in Europe. We have about 15,000 degree students from bachelor's to PhD, covering everything from psychology and humanities, biosciences. We have a pretty big strength in technology and business. We're partnered with University of Oxford Saïd Business School, for example, on the business side. And we do kind of traditional stuff with them. But we handle a variety of MBA programs. We have about 1,500 staff members across the colleges. And the really unique thing about Woolf is that, like University of London or University of Oxford, we are a collegiate institution. And so organizations sponsor the creation of a college and new degree programs. They all have to meet the same quality assurance and academic standards and regulatory benchmarks and so on. But it gives each of the programs a unique flavor and a really specialized approach to handling the academic. So we're a global institution. We've got students around the world. We have a pretty meaningful presence in the United States, pretty meaningful presence in Europe and globally.
That's super helpful. Thanks. And so we've gotten a few questions about the applicability of the degree around if I'm applying to a PhD or even on certain tax forms. I understand that there's going to be niche cases that we can't speak to the applicability in all such cases, but maybe just speak a little bit to, I think the short version of this is probably the degree applies the same as any degree applies, but maybe you can give a more articulate version of the degree.
Yeah, it's an accredited degree. It's the same as you'd expect from any other major higher education institution. You expect it to be recognized in countries around the world, which it is. We have students that move between countries every month. And so it counts for immigration and citizenship in, say, Canada. U.S. federal government recognizes it for H-1B visa exemptions. It's the equivalent to an American regionally accredited university. And we have all the sort of regular certifications that a university has around those things and are in all the recognized databases, both centrally in Europe as well as individual countries. In terms of whether MBAs prepare you for a PhD, MBAs are a professional program, and this is definitely a professional program. This is a program that is focused on your competence as a business leader engaged in technology products. And that's different than bleeding edge research on foundation models and machine learning algorithms, although there might be a bit of that in there. And so it might prepare you for a doctorate of business administration, and that would be kind of a natural trajectory after an MBA to go to a DBA. You can also do a PhD and it'd be recognized for that, although you really want to check with the particular universities. A lot of universities are looking for kind of the master's in AI type program prior to going into a PhD, as opposed to the MBA type program, because they just have a set out assumption that that's a more professional program. But check with the particular university and the PhD potential advisors.
Yeah, great.
In terms of qualifications, though, yes, I mean, a master's degree is typically the precursor to a doctorate, and this is a master's degree that will be recognized by any university.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen a couple questions already in the chat sort of to this end, so hopefully that answered it. We won't be getting into the specific, what is the standing of this particular degree or the applicability in a specific geography, because I don't know how many countries there are in the world. I probably should, 260, 300 plus. So we're not going to touch on every one of them. If you have questions on that front, there are support channels you can follow up with, and we and the Woolf team would be more than happy to give specific advice for your use case.
I will say, I mean, and Joshua knows this better than I do, but Woolf is considered a full degree and validated in 60 plus countries around the world, including countries like the United States, Canada, and Europe, among many others. So if you have further questions about specific countries, we're happy to take them. But all things said and done, it's broadly accepted.
Central administration fields queries that are special to very unique cases every day and manages with the Ministry of Education in many countries around the world to handle portability of degrees.
let's talk about the program structure a little bit. Let's think about this from the perspective of a student considering the MBA, trying to wrap their head around, okay, you're not on a campus, you don't have a set schedule of when you've got to be somewhere at a certain time. What you have is an completely asynchronous online experience. But Jared, I'll let you take it from there in terms of just talk through the structure of the curriculum and how students progress through the curriculum towards a capstone and ultimately conference of the degree.
Yeah, you bet. So the curriculum is broke down into three different what we call tiers. So the first is the core module. Those are required nanodegree programs that students must take in order to graduate from the MBA program. The second is electives. So in that case, we offer about a dozen, just over a dozen different nanodegree programs as electives that students can opt into to fulfill the elective requirement. And then the last is the capstone. There are 7 nanodegrees included in the core module. So those are product manager, AI product manager, growth product manager, digital marketer, business intelligence analytics, AI for business leaders, and digital transformation for business leaders. You can take those in any order that you want. There's no set order. It's really up to you and your interest. And you can take the electives before you take the core modules if you want. You are required to do 625 credit hours within the core module. And then there's 875 credit hours required in the electives. And then finally, we have the capstone, which is 750 credit hours. And so you could really take those in any order you like. The capstone is designed around the core module. So, we really highly recommend that our learners get started with the core module and finish that before they start the capstone, just so that they have all the context of what they'll be working on with the capstone. And the capstone in this case is going to be designed for the student to essentially build out a business and a business plan and work through the logistics of what that might look like. It's going to be a technology-oriented business, so it'll require feature development and product development. They'll have to write spec and product requirement documents, and all of that is reviewed by our team of mentors. Because there are so many nanodegree programs required to complete this degree, you're going to get a massive portfolio with dozens of projects that you'll be able to share with potential employers that demonstrate your experience in the field, doing real work, solving real problems, and it gives you a lot to take home with you.
And I want to take that a step further because, as you point out, the building block of the whole program is the Udacity nanodegree program and the Udacity courses. I think I can tell from the chat, a lot of folks on the call are already pretty familiar with Udacity, but for those that might not be, let's just unpack a little bit what the nanodegree program is and what the core pillars of that experience are. You want to dig in there, Jared?
Yeah, you bet. So a nanodegree program is designed to be a comprehensive master's level course unto itself, essentially. But instead of having midterms and finals, we bring you usually 3 to 4 different projects that a student must complete in order to complete the nanodegree program and graduate from it. Those projects are aligned with the content that you're learning throughout the program, and oftentimes require you to either write a documentation or a business plan, or sometimes with the more technical courses, even code. And then once you have that project done, you would submit it to our team of mentors and graders. And so these are industry experts who understand the space inside and out. They work at some of the top tech companies in the world, and they'll provide you real feedback. They're reviewing every single submission personally, and giving you feedback based on what you submitted, what works and what doesn't work. If they see something that doesn't make sense, or you didn't quite do the project the right way, they'll let you know what you need to do to fix it and get through. So that's how nano degree programs work generally. And you can kind of think of the MBA and our master's degree as a bundle of nano degree programs, along with a capstone. So the capstone is the new introduction to it. There's also some required reading that we've introduced with the MBA program to meet academic standards.
Great. Another question for both of you, I think. Joshua, you have a doctorate. Jared, you have a MBA yourself. So you both have ample experience with the traditional higher education institutions. What is different about the MBA and the Masters in AI offered by the Udacity Institute of AI and Technology? I mean, and I don't mean like in the particulars of the structure. Yeah. I just mean high level as working professionals who are founders and VPs and have been working in and adjacent to tech and education for a long time. What's there to like about this program? Why are you both so keen to be involved in building new programs like this for students and professionals?
I am happy to start, Joshua, if that's okay by you.
Yeah.
This program is actually really personally something that I'm interested in. So I got my MBA from the University of North Carolina. Go Heels. We're playing in basketball today. So throw that out there. And then I immediately went to Amazon as a senior product manager with absolutely no tech experience, no experience in product management. My first ever assignment was to write a business requirements document or product requirement document for this feature that I thought I wanted to build. And I wrote like a 1-page narrative that if I look back on now, I'd be like, what in the hell was this? It was not detailed. It didn't have acceptance criteria. I really had no idea what I was doing. I was just kind of walking in and trying to figure it out. And luckily I was able to, work with some really great people and get great guidance at Amazon and kind of figure it out as I went and, turn it into a very successful career in product management. But I can tell you that not everybody did. So Amazon hired a ton of MBA graduates. And very often I would see graduates from some of the top business schools in the country really struggle to be successful as product managers, and struggle so much that, many of them didn't stick around. And so, when I had this opportunity here with Woolf and with Udacity, it was just a no-brainer that the MBA is very important. Product management is one of the fastest growing fields in technology, especially for those inclined towards business. And product management is also one of Udacity's, most popular subject matters. And so the triangulation of all of those things is really what led to us saying, we have an opportunity here to build an MBA that sets up any aspiring product manager for instant success by the time they land that job. And that really was the driving factor for me.
Joshua, curious to hear your perspective.
I spent I was an academic previously. I was on faculty at Oxford in the governing parliament there. Officially and not officially, I've also had academic stints at Yale and Dartmouth and Duke and University of Edinburgh and the Humboldt University in Berlin. I've seen a lot of university administration. It's tough for universities to build degrees because it's a very long bureaucratic process internally. And by the time they get to market, they are often not as relevant as they would like them to be. And one of the things that's really unique about this program is that Udacity has this very bleeding edge approach to the nano degrees themselves and the curriculum. And Udacity is situated within Accenture. And so it has this business angle for what is really relevant in terms of what we are building and the curriculum that we have. Our Fortune 500 companies going to use this on the one side. And then on the other side, there's this huge population of Silicon Valley tech folks who are using Udacity on a daily or weekly basis to upskill themselves. It's like the secret narrative in many Silicon Valley fan companies that people are using Udacity. So I think the program is very relevant, but then it has been combined with this accreditation to result in a real degree. It's not a badge. It's not a certificate. It's not just a course. It's an actual master's degree. And one of the things that we've been very focused on at Woolf as a higher education institution is making sure that our colleges and faculty can produce bleeding edge stuff and do it really quickly. So we've got the kind of infrastructure to process, 10,000 curriculum changes in a week, for example, and to get it through without cutting corners and to really make sure we are ticking all of the boxes, but also achieving excellence. And so I think this is a program that achieves academic excellence, but also is really relevant to the world, not as it was 5 years ago when somebody started designing the program, but as it is right now and as it is becoming with very significant changes in artificial intelligence.
And I will add my 2 cents. Nobody asked, but I'm the host, so I get to do this. As someone without the advanced degree, let's call it, I did consider it for a couple years. I went as far as to take the GRE, the GMAT, whichever one had less math. And I think ultimately, and I applied to a few schools and was weighing my options, and ultimately where I landed in my decision not to attend grad school was I was going to step away from my career for 2 years. There's lost cost in doing that, in addition to the cost you incur from the degree programs. And I just didn't have enough clarity on the practical implication for my career. And I think just feeling like stepping away and not getting time in a role where I could be building a concrete skill set in advancing within an organization was just too difficult for me to stomach. And so had there been programs like this, I think it becomes a lot more palatable for people in my position to feel like they can commit to something with really clearly defined career skills without having to necessarily step away from their life and career for 2 years. That's not to say traditional programs don't still have a ton of value for people looking for that. It's just nice to have a new entry into the field. Let's talk a little bit more about AI and product management. This MBA is an MBA, designed for AI product management. Jared, what does that mean in terms of the structure of the curriculum? And then let's talk about why we did that in terms of we could have just built an MBA, but we went a step further.
Yeah, I think generally, and you're seeing this in the industry, the demand for people who have AI skills is increasing. And this is especially true for product managers. And what does it mean to be an AI product manager? I think it's twofold. One, you need to know how to spec out and think about building products that are AI focused. So what that means is you should get your hands dirty with data sets and training data sets and building out models that really help you understand what it takes to deliver a great AI experience for customers. And so that's one part of it. That's the actually building an AI product. The second part of it is, being proficient in AI tools to help you become more efficient in your work. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity for that as well. We have an AI product manager nano degree program. It does both of those things and really kind of stretches through, all of the aspects of what it means to be an AI product manager. And this field continues to change on as I think Joshua mentioned, like at an insane clip and an insane velocity. And so because we see so much success with things like AI product manager, this is an area that we as Udacity are going to continue to invest in, continue to refine, continue to make sure that the folks who are enrolled in our MBA program are getting the latest and greatest thinking in this area. I'll add on to that where the backbone of a lot of what makes Udacity special is our more technical AI courses. So we have courses like generative AI, AI programming with Python, agentic AI, which we launched last year. All of those are electives within this program. And so, the really astute learner or product manager is going to go into this. They'll take the core modules, which are mostly business focused. And then they'll say, hey, you know what? I do want to become an expert. I want to understand Python. I want to understand how this stuff really works in the nitty gritty so that when I'm having a conversation with an engineering leader about what we need to build and they say, hey, we can't do X, Y, and Z because of ABC, I can say, well, that's not quite true because this is what we can do and let's figure this thing out together. One of the I think most important skills for a product manager generally, whether they're an AI product manager or just a general product manager, is knowing the technology inside and out and being able to make those trade-offs, which eventually come up as you're building a product or feature. The only way to know the product inside and out is to get deep on the technical side of the thing. In this case, more and more, the technical side of product is AI based. And so introducing that as part of this curriculum sets our students up for success, particularly in AI product manager roles, but also in roles in digital marketing or data analytics or any other role within business in technology.
Joshua, I'm curious, in your broader portfolio of the other programs you run and degrees you have available, you mentioned before MBAs are a focus area for Woolf. Do you see a lot of this sort of specialization or increasingly so in the market, or is this program unique in that regard?
We've got a mix of both. So we've got some traditional stuff and partnerships like University of Oxford Site Business School tend to lean traditional. And so those programs tend to be a little bit more like what you would expect out of a typical bread and butter MBA. We also support highly specialized ones, occupational health and safety specialism, if you're managing a hospital, or things like this. And so figuring out your career trajectory and what's going to be relevant to it allows for tailoring of an MBA. The regulation is certainly supportive of this. And so for a degree program that's an MBA, you can have these deep specializations. You've got to cover some things. And the question is, in what context do you cover those? And in this context, you're really covering, statistics, but in the case of BI dashboards and using data. And so it depends what is the zone in which you're operating. And this is a program that is operating in the zone of AI and product management.
Yeah. Quick reminder to the audience, please keep your questions coming. We see them, we're capturing them. We're getting to some on the fly and others we'll get to soon. Some questions I've seen a handful of already is Udacity launched a Master of Science in AI in the fall. Now we've launched an MBA. What's the difference between the two? What's the interplay between the two, if you will? Jared, I'll kick that to you first. Maybe just speak on a curriculum standpoint, like what's different expectation wise in terms of what students are learning in the two programs. And then we can pivot to some of the specifics around should I enroll in both and how does that work?
Yeah, the two primary differences are it's a completely different set of core modules that you have to complete and core nano degree programs in each of those degree programs. And then the second is the capstones are entirely different. The electives, are electives. You can pick and choose what electives you want to earn academic credit that counts towards your degree program. There are more electives in the Masters of Science than in the Masters in Business. And the reason for that is we at Udacity have a bigger catalog in areas like AI and technology than we do in things that are, as correlated to business. And so those are the primary differences. We list the core curriculum and the modules on each of the websites. So if you're really interested in diving in, you can see the differences there. But I'd say that those are the primary ones. From an outcome perspective, you're getting two different degrees. So one is a Master of Science. The other is a Master in Business. If you are exploring job postings, you will see in some cases they say MBA required or MBA preferred. And in some cases they'll say MSc required or MSc preferred. And so it really depends on what you're interested in, what you want to do with it, to help you inform your decision about which degree program you want to take.
And in terms of students who may already be enrolled in one and considering another, let's just talk logistically. Can you enroll in both at once, and how does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can enroll in the MBA if you've already enrolled in the Masters of Science. The key consideration is that any work that you've done for the Masters of Science does not count towards the MBA. So you will have to fulfill 2,250 unique credit hours in order to complete the MBA program. And those credit hours cannot be the same credit hours that you used for the Masters of Science. So it is a, equally, difficult and considered program, and something that you should be aware of before you head into it.
Great. And let's talk about the structure of the program a little bit, just because I've seen some recent questions and it is a little novel. Cost. We at Udacity advertise both the MBA and the Masters of Science in AI as master's degree programs you can complete for under 5K USD. That is, not to be over dramatic, but astounding as a price point in comparison to traditional MBAs, at least in the US and comparable markets. How do we achieve that? And structurally, how does that work for students?
Yeah, so I think one of my my favorite parts about these programs is when we started having these conversations with Joshua and Woolf, and we were talking about, okay, what makes sense? How does this work? I pushed pretty hard to say, I think we should just include these as part of the Udacity subscription. And this becomes a massive value add for anybody who has a Udacity subscription where they can access our master's degree programs. And so the backbone of the math on the less than $5,000 is that all you really need to take these degrees is to be a Udacity subscriber. On top of that, each degree has a one-time $199 administration fee, which essentially covers all of the setting up of your academic record for each degree. But outside of that, as long as you are a Udacity subscriber, you can get access to these programs and take them and take as long as you need to finish them. We average that it'll take between 18 and 24 months to finish these degree programs, both the Masters of Science and the MBA. With that said, there's a feature that Woolf offers called recognition of prior learning that is available to all students that will essentially provide up to 1/3 of the credit required based on your work experience. So if you're already a product manager and you've spent 5 years in product management, you may apply for recognition of prior learning and get up to 30 credits for the degree program. So that will give you, expedite the time it takes to finish. If you're very curious about where the less than 5,000 comes from, the math is the sticker price of Udacity is $249 a month. We estimate 19 months to finish, and then we add $199 on top of that. And so that gets you right under $5,000. I will say right now, Udacity does have a flash sale live for the subscription, not for the one-time fee. And so that would bring the total cost down, if it took you 19 months, down to under $3,000. And so this is, I think that we had a Poets and Quants article come out last week when we did this announcement. And I think Poets and Quants said this may be the most affordable MBA program in existence. I like to think that that's true, although I haven't validated it across every single one in the world. But at $5,000 even, we're 10x more affordable than the average MBA in the United States, which averages $62,000 in total. And so, I think that this is one of the biggest differentiators of our program is really the accessibility of it. And our reason of doing that was really to make higher education accessible to the masses and give everyone a way to get started and earn the degree if they want to.
Yeah.
It's a very high quality program too. It's one thing to have an affordable price. It's another thing for it to be worth your time. And this is a program that's just really excellent. We look at a lot of programs at Woolf as an institution from faculty. We have many varieties of MBAs. We have an MBA in arts management for people coming out of Juilliard and the New England Conservatory of Music for launching musical businesses. This is really focused on AI and product management, and the depth of expertise and the cutting edge nature of the program is just really valuable. The world is changing very quickly, and I don't think there's ever been a better time for people that are in leadership positions that want to use technology to do a program like this one. So I love that it's so affordable, that is so aligned with what is possible. But the fact that it's both affordable and such a high quality program situated within Udacity and Accenture I think really makes it very hard to miss the ROI on this one for one's career.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just reiterate for the audience, the key here is flexibility. The total cost of the program is effectively anchored in the time it takes you to complete. And so if you want to work full time on this, you can complete it sooner. It will cost you maybe considerably less than $5K. If you want to do this part time on the weekends, after work, before work, totally doable. That's why we set it up as an asynchronous program. You can do it for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. It'll cost a little more, but you get the benefit of flexibility. So any further questions about cost structure, we're here to answer them. There's different support channels you can reach out to. Jared, do you want to add more there?
Yeah, I just want to add one more point on this. If you've already taken a nano degree program that is included in the MBA, the work you did there already counts. So you have a head start. And what this means is that it allows you to finish even faster. And so, for example, we launched the Masters of Science in Artificial Intelligence back in October. And we've already had a handful of Udacity learners graduate from that because they had taken a ton of the courses and nano degree programs that were part of the core curriculum already. And so they were able to move through the program at a much quicker pace than 18 months, for example.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you about that, Joshua. There's a few terms unique to this ecosystem that I just want to see if we can define real quick. So recognition of prior learning is the first thing. Jared just spoke to it, but do you want to share a bit more on like the Woolf definition and process?
Yeah, based on some of the comments, I'll also say there are 3 different admissions pathways for us as a higher education institution into a master's degree. And so if you have a diploma but didn't finish your undergraduate, you don't technically qualify under a standard admissions pathway, but you may qualify if you have work experience. And so the work that you've done kind of fills the difference between maybe the partial bachelor's degree that you had and the requirement to have a bachelor's degree to get in. And so there's a team at Woolf in the central administration that is dedicated to analyzing your life experience to see, is there an RPL? Is there a recognition of prior learning pathway into the degree? You may also just have a lot of prior experience that maps onto the program. And if that is the case, that can be counted for credit exemptions. And so if you've already done some of these things, then they can be exempted from the program requirements. And so there's a team dedicated to understanding RPL for credit. And do you have a recognized prior learning experience where you can get life credits into the degree? So there's a bit of that. And that can be really valuable for knocking out things that you're already kind of smart on and familiar with. If you don't meet those entry criteria, you can also do what's called performance-based admissions, where you say, look, I don't have a bachelor's degree. I am really good at tech. I am thinking about business or running a business. I don't have that much experience, but I want to see if I can hack it. And on that pathway, if you demonstrate competence in the early modules of the program, you can be admitted. So there are special regulated rules around this, and I think it's 20% with a grade of 80% or more, or something like this, which are available. And so you can enter the program. So we do get some younger folks in their career that come in through that pathway and end up being really successful. So there's sort of standard admissions, there's RPL admissions, recognized prior learning and life experience, including life experience for credits that everybody is eligible for potentially. And then there's performance-based admissions.
Very helpful. Hopefully that answers a variety of questions that came in the chat over the course of the session around the requirements for admission and the application of both prior learning and prior work experience. Again, if you have further questions about your qualification, we're happy to address those questions in some of the various support channels available via Udacity and Woolf. So don't be shy to come to us with inquiries about your specific case. Because we're just talking about admissions, Jared, you want to speak to, I guess, a little less about admissions and a little more about just the prerequisites. What does, let me put it this way. What is the profile of a person who is poised to succeed in this MBA program? What skills, what experience, what motivations do they bring?
Yeah, it depends is kind of the answer, which I know is probably not a satisfactory answer, but we wanted to make this program accessible. And so, yes, we say a bachelor's degree is preferred, but it's optional. It's not required. To Joshua's point, you could take the performance-based admission path or the RPL path, even if you don't have a bachelor's degree finished. We encourage you to have some background in, algebra and basic math. That will help quite a bit to get this done. Some work experience is preferred, but again, not required. The thing about Udacity is that once you come into our program, we are going to give you the tools that you need to develop these skills and make sure that you learn them and internalize them. And so, even if you come in with no prior experience and no bachelor's degree and a very basic understanding of algebra, you will still be able to be successful in this program. And so I think that makes it a very attractive program for a lot of folks. But that's not to say that you're starting from the basics. It's very adjustable based on wherever you kind of come in from and what your background is. And so somebody who has no experience may come in and start taking some electives that are more beginner introduction oriented. Somebody who's been doing this for a long time may come in and they can just say, hey, you know what, I'm going to take agentic AI as an elective, and I know Python already, and I can get started there. And so because of the flexibility of the program itself, the self-service nature of the program itself, you can really pick and choose your own path based on where you are and what makes sense for you.
Yeah. Something I'll add about the recognition of prior learning that we've talked about is prior Udacity coursework is also applicable. So there's a few questions about folks not sure if they want to commit to the MBA. You can enroll in a Udacity All Access subscription without signing up for a degree program. You can take a Udacity course or nano degree, get a feel for the experience. And then when you do eventually sign up for the master's, the progress you have made in eligible programs will be transferred into your master's progress. So it's a very, very easy way, if you haven't experienced Udacity before, to get a sense for our learning experience before committing to the program of learning. And on the flip side of that, and I'll kick this back to you, Jared, I also think, Jared or Joshua, I'm not sure, whoever wants to take this one up, as folks learn and make progress towards a degree, they may, for whatever reason, not complete the degree program. What is the transferability of what they've learned in the credits they've accrued in terms of other degree programs down the road that they may want to look at?
Joshua, you want to take that one?
You can contact the registrar of the central institution. So Woolf has a registrar. There's a button on the student dashboard for this. And send your transcript to another institution. And so it transfers in just as any transcript between institutions go. You're much better off finishing the program. I will say some institutions don't like to receive credits. They'll recognize them, but say, we teach, finance this way, and, there's not enough finance here, or we teach agentic AI using this LLM, not that one, and therefore we recognize it, but you still have to do the LLM course again. So there's a little bit of that when you move between institutions, but the credits will be recognized by all other institutions, and you can transfer them if you don't finish the program.
Great.
And just in case I'm not misunderstanding this, Joshua, that is the same as it would be for any university, right? So like if I
Correct.
took courses in some university in the US and wanted to transfer somewhere else, they may say, well, we do it a little bit differently. So like the course that you took there doesn't necessarily apply one-on-one.
If you're at Stanford and you want to move your philosophy course to Harvard, the Harvard faculty is going to say, yes, of course, we accept your Stanford course. However, we teach philosophy slightly differently. So now you still have to do more. You're just going to graduate with extra credits. So sometimes that happens, which is why it's always better to just finish the program if you can. But yes, fully recognized, fully accredited, other institutions will receive your transcript. We have a whole process for moving your credits between institutions, regardless of the country in which you are going.
Interesting question just came in. I think this is the first time I've seen this one asked in either degree program since we launched. Can you get 2 MBAs if I have an MBA from 20 years ago and I want to freshen my skill set and I like the appeal of the specialization in AI product management that Udacity's degree have? Is there any reason I can't get a second MBA?
No, you can get a second MBA if you'd like.
Great. Maybe a third. I don't know. All right, we are
as many as you want.
Yeah, we're nearing the top of the hour, and I think we've addressed a lot of the questions I've seen come through chat. With the caveat that, folks, there's a lot of specific questions about individual cases. I live here. Does this apply? This is my background. What's eligible for admission or recognition of prior learning? We'd be here all day if we addressed all the specific cases. So again, please encourage folks to reach out. For the remainder of our time, I think I want to focus a little bit more on outcomes. So we've gotten deep into the nitty gritty of the accreditation and the structure and the cost, recognition of prior learning, all that fun stuff. But ultimately, people commit to these programs because of a belief in what it will return for them personally and professionally. Jared, can you speak to that sentiment? What do you believe students can expect in terms of concrete outcomes as a result of enrolling in and completing the MBA program?
Yeah, sure. Happy to. I'll start by saying Udacity has a career services team. And as part of the Udacity subscription, you have access to all of our career services. And so what that includes is resume reviews from our mentors. So again, personalized reviews with real feedback that hit on how you can make your resume better and stand out in the marketplace. Cover letter reviews, LinkedIn profile reviews. If you want to go the technology route, GitHub portfolio reviews. We've also partnered with Exponent, which is a company that provides mock interviews for folks who are interested in tech. The founder of Exponent started as a product manager, and so Exponent's interviews are also very heavily focused on nailing the product interviews at places like Meta or Amazon or Google or any of the big FANG companies, and now OpenAI as well as Anthropic. And so you get all of those services as part of the Udacity subscription. On top of that, the way I think about an MBA is it's a ticket. And what it means is that when you're reviewing job posts, and I said this earlier, many of them will say, MBA preferred or MBA required. Now you have it. And by having it, you open up your aperture of your job hunt to a lot of jobs that you wouldn't have had the opportunity to apply to before. And I think that between those two things, the expectation is that our students will leave our program and be job ready and able to get those jobs, at a really high probability percentage.
And I'm going to go a step further and a step more specific because I really like the latest question that came in. Jared, you spoke to your experience going from UNC's MBA program to working at Amazon. Thinking about Udacity's MBA with a focus in AI product management, how do you feel like that may or may not do a better job of preparing professionals to step into a fast-paced, sort of bleeding-edge product environment like what Amazon has to offer?
Yeah, I think the expectation is that you're going to hit the ground running. One of my old managers used to say this, which is really competent professionals, especially product managers. You can bring them in, they'll parachute in, and they'll just start performing right away. And what that saves is a 3, 6 month, 1 year learning period where you're just trying to figure out what it means to be successful in your role. And that period can be detrimental for your career because if you don't figure it out fast enough or you don't have the support you need from your manager, you may end up on the outs at whatever company that you're looking to be successful in. And so, as I mentioned, I think, at the beginning of this conversation, with our program, you're going to come in with these skills. You're going to know how to write a PRD. You're going to know how to write a business case. You're going to know what it means to work with technology partners and make sure that you understand what sprint planning looks like, and how agile operations work, and how to have those conversations. And so I think you're just way better off to be successful if your goal is to work in a tech company than if you were to go to a traditional program and you're kind of getting a little bit of everything and you leave and you're like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Okay, I'll try this and figure it out as I go. You won't have to figure it out as you go.
Great.
One of the things I think is really valuable, we've spoken a bit about the entrance door and the different pathways into the program. And people come from a lot of different backgrounds. And one of the things that Woolf as an institution is good at supporting are people that didn't quite finish their bachelor's, they have a diploma, or they have work experience that fills the gap. And all of that is about how do you come into the program? But ultimately what has to happen at the end is you have to be competent. And you have to be competent in the areas that this program delivers on. And one of the things we are checked on as an institution is how do we know the competence of the students coming out the exit door? And that is what happens when you get a degree. You are understood to be competent in this. And employers understand that this is not a certificate. It's not a badge. It's a real degree, which is a shorthand for when you finish your capstone, you are competent in a whole series of areas that make sense as an MBA in product, in artificial intelligence. And so I think that's really exciting that you get up to the level that you need to be at in order to really operate in an organization. And the degree is a way of saying you really do have this competence. And, no matter where you came in on the journey, you have the confidence of exiting that journey with a level of competence that really matters to your career.